Good afternoon and a warm welcome to the May 2024 edition of the TaxCalc Power Hour. This is your chance to not only pick up some solid gold tips on using the ever-expanding suite of TaxCalc tools, but also ask some questions and maybe show off some of your own skills by sharing something that even we didn't know. I know you're all excited because today is all about accounts production. We're going to be looking at importing trial balances, reviewing your data and a whole lot more, plus a look at some of the more recently added advanced formats that you may have missed. I'm joined by probably the best qualified brains in the business to help with this. Dean Shepherd is the Head of Product Compliance and Siobhan Wilkes has the privilege of being the Product Director to whom the whole accounts production suite belongs. So you're in safe hands. As always, the Power Hour is very much a two-way business. We love to hear your questions and feedback. So if anything doesn't make sense, you need clarification, or there's something that you've always puzzled over and you'd like us to explore it a little bit more, please use the chat function. That's in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Don't forget the chat function is the one where everyone can see what you say. The Q&A box, if you only want us to see your question, although you do run the risk of sometimes being missed in there, but we'll focus on the chat. Yes, of course, we will be sending a copy of this at the end. And yes, of course, there will be a quiz. So please, let's get started. So of all of TaxCalc's tools, accounts production, along, I guess, with practice management, has evolved arguably the most in the past few years. The core product has twice been voted best in class by the readers of Accounting Web. And we've also added FRS102 MLA module for medium and large accounts with LLP accounts. And just this week, group accounts too. So we're lucky to have found a spare hour in Siobhan's diary for all of this. So let's get started. Siobhan, you, I think one of the most common things that we get is questions about bringing data in, bringing the trial balance in to TaxCalc. So perhaps we can start there?
Yeah, great. So I'll give a demo on that one. So when we go into accounts production here and choose our accounting period end date, within our posting section, obviously there's lots of different options here for you to be able to manually post, but what you can do, obviously, is import from our bookkeeping providers. So you can import from Free Agent and QuickBooks and Xero. So, and that's all two-way integration. So if I go through here and verify myself with Free Agent, then I can import the trial balance. This one's just giving me a message to say that the period's been logged. So if I click on OK to that, it says it's successfully fetched the data. And let me click here to select the import maps, and what will happen there is it will show me that all of the postings have been mapped there, all the account codes have been mapped, so I'm happy with that. So if I click on continue, it brings in all the amounts and shows me the amounts that will be mapped to each of the account codes I chose in the last screen, and I can continue and finish, and there I get the TB all imported in and be able to see all the postings that have been imported therein from Free Agent for me.
So hands up everyone who didn't know about the import and the integrations that TaxCalc, I've got TaxCalc on the brain, that TaxCalc has for accounts production. In the chat, if you say yay or nay, if you did or didn't know that we had those integrations. And Dean's got some more to show us as well. So.
I do, yes. So as well as getting information in directly from the bookkeeping software, we also have some alternative methods for getting data into accounts production. And these are probably ones that I would have used predominantly in my practice because I would have done all my workings in my working papers, got to a final TB, and then brought those figures in to TaxCalc accounts production. So if I dive into the software now and show you what I would do, I'm going to go to the same import trial balance option that Siobhan just showed, but rather than selecting a third party, I'm going to import via CSV, browse to the file I want to bring in, hit continue. I'm going to use the default import map there, and from here on in it's exactly the same as Siobhan. They're all mapped to the codes within accounts production, and that is going to bring in the trial balance. Now we do also have a couple of other options for bringing information in that people aren't always aware of, and that's the new template batch. So we've got three different options here. Last year's trial balance, So if we just create a batch there, what this does is basically create an empty TB. So we've got all the account codes from last year's trial balance, but none of the figures in there. So you can just manually type those figures in if you want a quick way of entering the data. The other option we've got within there is last year's trial balance, including debit and credit values. So this basically recreates last year's TB in its entirety. There's probably not too many cases where you're going to want an identical copy of last year's TB, maybe some rental accounts or something like that would be very similar. But the advantage of this one over the last one, perhaps for some of the junior members of your team who don't know their debits from their credits quite so well as you might, is that they can go through and make sure that they're actually entering them on the right side of the trial balance when they're bringing data in. So maybe that one's a bit more useful for some of the junior members. And then the final option we've got on the new template batch is favourite account code. So within any of the chart of accounts within TaxCalc Accounts Production, you can tick off which ones you want to identify as your favourites. That's probably the ones that you're going to see very regularly. A lot of the account codes that we have in Accounts Production are very extensive to cater for businesses very small and very large, but the ones you see most often, you can tick those as your favourites, and then you can create a posting batch from here. And again, just enter it manually like those other two options I've just shown you. So lots of different ways of getting the trial balance information into Accounts Production.
Thank you, Dean. We've got a few questions already. So Joe and Marina, both begging you to explain how to set up the mapping between one set of software and another. Are you able to do that here, or?
Do you want to talk that one through, Siobhan, how you do an import map?
Yeah, sure. So we don't have a separate import map to the actual import itself. So the mapping happens when you import, and once you set those mappings, it should remember them year on year so that you don't have to redo those. So I've obviously already, let me delete that, I've already imported these figures once. So if I just jump through to the screen here, so here's where I can map the code, so I can select those mappings in here and map them. I went in and selected, when I did the little run through a second ago, selected the previous map, so it automatically filled them in for me, but that's just based on my previous imports. So yeah, here's where you would select and choose the codes that you want your third-party import map to import from.
Okay.
I think one of the ladies a little bit early on, I don't remember her name, asked about integrating with other packages like Sage. So we basically import the Free Agent Zero and QuickBooks with the highest requested sort of imports. So we did those ones first. So we do them based upon feedback. So yeah, if there's enough demand for things, we will implement those. So,
yeah, Free Agent Zero, QuickBooks. Okay, so basically the upshot was most people knew, but probably about, I would say 20% did not know about the integration. So hopefully you've learned something there, and reach out. We can carry on with direct training if you need that, if you need some more help and assistance.
We did have another question actually about the favourite account codes.
Oh yeah.
And whether you can, whether you set those at practice level or whether you can have favourites per client.
All right, yeah. So they're all set at admin level, so they are across all of your clients. So it's not possible at the moment to set them per client individually. So yeah, it's more like a favourite for your database rather than a favourite for an individual client.
Yeah, and you set those per chart of account, so you can have separate favourites for your sole traders, your partnerships, your limited companies.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean we can get a bit more specific about the how many people use it. I think we're quite interested to know how many people are using the integration. So actually, Dean set up a poll. Do you want to do that, Dean?
Yes, let's make that poll live. Okay, so hopefully on your screens you'll see the poll that I've just made active. If you don't see it, then there is a little tab on the bottom right of your console next to the chat and the questions to click on and see the poll. But the question we're asking is, do you currently use our bookkeeping integration? So for your clients with Xero, Free Agent or QuickBooks Online. 4 options there. Tick the one that applies to you, hit submit, and be great to see some of the numbers and see who is or isn't using that bit of functionality in Accounts Production.
Couple of more quick little questions about the mapping while we're doing that. So Claire says, if the mapping is wrong and you amend it, it seems the next year it reverts to the incorrect one created.
Yeah, I mean, that's not intentional. So I think we need to take a look at what's going on with that with Claire.
What's going on.
Similarly, let's say, yeah. the Juliet where she
Juliet
says they're not remembered. Yes, we'll have to look at those because they should be.
We will get onto those for you. Okay, so while we're finishing the poll, I have a quiz question for you all. Now, we've got a special surprise for this week. We have got a prize for this week's question. So, modelled by Siobhan. Siobhan? So we're launching these for Accountex. We've bought some new swag. So, but if you would like to be the person who's walking in to Accountex modelling the new TaxCalc caps, we have them in both pink and black. You can choose which one you get. If you want to be the proud person walking into Accountex wearing your cap, then you can win this. So we've got first quiz question. The question is relating to terrible errors. So we have got, for the first question, I need the closest answer first. And this is an attempt to shoehorn the issue of errors into the next one, because that's what we're going to be looking at in the next section. So the quick question one is, in 2012, the coupon giant Groupon made a schoolboy error and forgot to report its refunds in its annual accounts. As a result, how many millions of dollars did their fourth quarter losses increase by, resulting in a total loss of nearly 63 million? So how many, and we'll take the closest answer, throw your answers into the chat, and you could be the proud owner of a TaxCalc hat. I'll say that again. So
can we choose the colour, Andy?
You can choose the colour, yep. One size fits all, I should say. So how many millions of dollars did Groupon's fourth quarter losses increase by due to a schoolboy error in reporting? How's everyone doing?
Oh, we had a very close, very, very close answer, if not the exact answer. That it's scrolling so quick, I can't scroll back up to the correct answer.
We never do work
but
out
we do have,
doing this.
Yeah, we
Are
do.
we going with, is it Sonia? Or did we get one before that?
If anyone can find Sonia's answer, they could chip in with a...
Okay, well, yeah, no, we're going to close it down, I think. So the winner, we're going to call it on this, is...
What was the answer first of all?
It was $20.2 million they were out by in a terrible schoolboy error. Sonia Booth, I'm going to call it, as the winner. Congratulations, Sonia. If you want to put your details into the Q&A box, that'll be just for us. We'll catch up with you afterwards, and you get to choose which colour hat you would like. So well done, Sonia. Fantastic. Okay, so, and that shoehorn leads us into, neatly, I thought, into reviewing figures and spotting potential errors. So, Siobhan, what have you got?
Great. So obviously, from where I've gone here, I've imported those figures from my bookkeeping packages, and maybe I'll go straight into the full financial statements there and take a look at how things are looking. So within Accounts Production, any of you who already use it will probably know about the switch to edit mode option. But that means that I can drill down into most of the things on my report. So any of the textual disclosures and any of the figured disclosures as well. So if I was coming down here to look at my profit and loss here, and I wanted to just have a little look at the figures that were made up from that individual figure that's shown on the report, I can click on there. If I were to look at this particular one, I can see there's an unallocated director's salary that's been imported from the free agent in there. So I can click on that amount. It shows me all the figures in my sort of like on-screen nominal ledger there, and I can go in and actually choose the director on there, so that'll become allocated. If, say, whilst I was in here, I wanted to, I noticed that perhaps this amount here had been imported as director's salary, but actually that one's not a specific to a director. I can sort of edit some of that figure and say, okay, well, that amount is for a director, but the rest of it I want to be allocated just to a specific sort of, or non-specific staff costs. I can edit and change those figures here. So if I save, you'll see that that's come back and updated the actual amount to show it's going to Siobhan Haycock. So that one's been allocated there, and if I close out of the drill down there, it will then take me back to the report. The net effect of this, obviously, because I just amended some of the figures to go to the director and go to a slightly different place that was still a part of cost of sales, it actually still shows the same figure. But so that's a good way of being able to sort of check the figures sort of from the report, drill into them, make any adjustments that you want to make, and be a bit more confident that the figures are correct there.
We've had a couple of questions about how you get into that mode to be able to edit, how to get into those accounts.
Yeah, so I just went into full financial statements. I'm in edit mode at the moment, but if I switch back, when you first go into the report, it will have this switch to edit mode. When you're not in edit mode, it won't have any of those little pinky, purpley boxes that go around. But when you switch to it, you'll see they all start to become highlighted. So anything that has those boxes, whether it's figures you can drill down into, or like we said there before, maybe descriptions here you can change, the signature here. So there's quite a few different areas where that's really useful to be able to drill in. Obviously we were talking a bit more specifically about the figures there and being able to drill into those, but yeah, there are lots of things on the report that you can pick up, drill into, edit and change whilst you're looking through them to check they're okay.
We've got some edit mode fans in,
oh yeah,
in the
very
chat.
good.
I love
like
edit mode. It's one of my favourite modes too.
Yeah.
So Dean, did you
Yes.
want to talk about multiple?
Yes,
periods, so.
multiple trial balances. Yeah, so if I dive into the software, I'll show you some of the different options we've got to view the trial balances and help you with your review of the accounts. So if you're anything like me and you've seen so many sets of accounts in your career, then you don't need to actually look at the financial statements. It all kind of looks like financial statements, a bit like the matrix when you're staring at a trial balance. So I've gone into the trial balance here, and this is the normal trial balance view that you might expect. But we've also got an option up here to customize. So if I wanted to, I can add as many different historical trial balances as I like. I shall round it to the pound, so I don't need to see it all the way to the pence. And because I've done 5 in this particular instance, it's switched to landscape mode rather than portrait, so we can neatly fit it all in the screen. But there we've got a comparative trial balance, which I think is a really good option. I'm not sure I'd have too many more than 5 TBs on the go, but that's a really good way of just seeing whether there are any anomalies or things that stand out, or kind of things you can have conversations with your client about. If I go back into that customize option, now I'm going to remove some of these extra TBs and just bring myself back to the current year and the prior year. We've also got the variance options down here. So we can have a variance pounds, so just the absolute difference year on year between 2 figures in the trial balance, and or we can have the variance expressed as a percentage. So if I click on that, we've gone back to portrait view now with only these 2 columns. So we can see for every different account within the trial balance, we've got the variance in pounds and the percentage either increase, decrease, or stayed exactly the same. So actually that's a really nice indicator. Again, helps the more junior members of your team who might know the client so well, or might not know exactly what to look out for year on year in a set of accounts, just to highlight things that are looking a little bit different, bring it up for their attention. And again, like Siobhan demonstrated earlier on the accounts, from here we can drill down into the nominal ledger for any of these items, so that you can do a deeper dive to see what postings are in there. And again, from here you can go right back to the original posting batch where that came from, either just to check what's in there or if you want to make a change.
Awesome. Thank you, Dean. So a few questions have come in. Couple of people asking about spell check.
Oh right, yeah, we don't have a spell check.
We don't have a spell
I can
check.
see I was actually typing some stuff in to reproduce some accounts yesterday, and I thought my spelling's a bit, typing perhaps is a bit dodgy, but it would be a nice thing to include, but it's not something we've got at the moment.
Okay. So that could well be coming. And there was a question as well. So Tanya said, how can I set up in the notes that we're an ACCA regulated practice? I have to do it every time for a new client.
So we do, I don't know exactly what bit Tanya's referring to there, but we do have an option to set admin level sort of defaults to things. So if that's something there that they can set up at admin level, you should be able to set it up for all of your clients. I don't know if you want to have a quick look at what's happening there, but when you go into this option here, in admin level, you can choose your sort of accounting standard, because obviously there are different notes and accounting policies and things for the different types, but you should be able to set defaults there. So yeah, if it's this bit.
That might be in reference to the audit report as well. Would that audit report pick up?
Yeah, I think the audit report probably is slightly different in that there's a default template for the body in the accountant's report, but this doesn't quite apply the same way in the audit report.
Okay, we may need to come back to you on that, Tanya.
No, I think she can do it like that.
You can do it like that?
Yeah. Well, I think what she's asking in terms of the accountant's report, she can set a default there.
Okay.
I don't know if she's tried that and it's not working as she'd expect, or she just didn't realise the option was there. But
well, Tanya's definitely sweating the asset today. She's put another question. I need to post department
Depreciation.
Depreciation.
Yeah.
I wish I could see. Every time to separate the brought forward depreciation from the annual depreciation. Any solutions to automate that, please?
Yeah, I don't know
you're on the spot here.
It's fine. I don't know if Tanya's talking about. I mean, when we bring forward stuff, obviously we will bring forward them to the depreciation brought forward. But I don't know if she's talking about importing from the third-party bookkeeping packages, where it's just importing to the depreciation brought forward code. That might be what it is. I mean, anything that's separated out in the bookkeeping packages, she should be able to map them to different codes. But yeah, I'd have to have a look at what the bookkeeping package it was and what they allow, because sometimes they might not necessarily give us all the segregations that there could be for certain things, so we can't necessarily map them separately, but we can take a look and see a bit more closely what she's doing there.
Okay. Another question, Dean. I think this may be for you. We've covered this. Yeah. How do we send amended accounts to Companies House? Without P&L.
Siobhan, can we send?
Can we do that?
Accounts without P&L?
Not specifically. I don't know what it is they're doing and why they don't want to include the P&L. But yeah, I'd have to find out a little bit more information about what he's asking for there. I don't really. You should be able to amend any type of accounts and be able to submit the registrar version. And if they didn't have the P&L, then they wouldn't have it as part of the revised version. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look into more why he's asking to remove it, on what basis.
Okay.
And you can file, just in a comment in there about amended accounts having to be filed on paper. You can file them electronically through TaxCalc. You don't need to file them on paper.
It was a fairly recent change, so people might not be aware of. I mean, we did it, I think, last summer. So yeah, but unless you come across it, you don't necessarily know, do you? But yeah, the options are all in there to submit them.
Okay, so we're going to move on now, back to Siobhan. So we're going to talk about calculating the tax and keeping the accounts in sync.
Yeah, so if I've imported the figures, I've reviewed them from an accounts perspective, and I've finished all of those, and then I want to go into tax to be able to complete the tax return. So if I go into tax return production, so I'm not actually going to go through completing the tax return because we're doing account stuff, but what I want to do is show that if you go into the accounts and computation section of the simple step here in tax production, you can select and import the figures directly from accounts production. So if I choose the period here that I'd like to import them from, it'll give me a summary of all the figures that it's found for that period. I can adjust those here if I wanted to for any reason, and then click on import and it'll actually import all those figures for me. So once I've imported the figures, obviously I can see the tax at the top there is being calculated, and in this scenario, like I said, I'm not going to go through and do all of the tax return, but say I had completed that and I come down to completing the return, I get the option here to actually post the tax journal back automatically into accounts production. So if I click to post it, choose the period end date I'd like to post it for, I get a summary here just telling me what I'm going to do. Obviously I can override that if I wanted to, or I'll split out the tax between the normal tax and the section 445 tax. I didn't say that right, did I? 455 tax.
455.
And I can post that figure automatically back into accounts production. So you'll see here that actual amount's gone in there. It sort of date and time stamps it, so I know where it's from and where it's come from. And what I can do there, if I've decided that I have finished, I can actually export that one back to Free Agent. Obviously I'm linked into Free Agent here. So we do that two-way integration for all of the bookkeeping providers that we actually work with. So if we click on the export journal, I can click on export, it just goes through the verification steps again. And once it has authenticated, I can then just export the figure. Here it's just asking me to confirm the account codes I wish to export to, so that gets picked up from the mapping file. So if I click on continue and finish, it actually then exports that figure. So once that is exported, if I did want to actually delete that for any reason, maybe there was something in tax that I hadn't done, then I could, and I needed to update it, I could actually delete the batch, and that will automatically delete and remove it from Free Agent as well. So that's not restricted to the tax adjustments. I can do any postings that I want to there and export any of them back out into Free Agent.
Okay. So we've got a whole bunch of questions in here, which we can go through. Dean, any leaping out to you, or?
We've had lots of questions about all the various different formats that we either do or don't support. I've seen mention of charities, community interest companies. We do have a poll that I was going to go to a little bit later, but I think now's probably a good time to drop that in because we had lots of different questions. So I'm going to create a poll or make this poll go live. Same as before. So we just want an indication of the types of different entities that you prepare accounts for each year to give us an indication of which are the formats that you're most likely to need in your practice that we don't, well, some that we do cover and some that we don't. So the first two options that we got there are groups for consolidated accounts. We've just released this week our module for that. The full FRS 102 for your medium or large clients. We've released that previously, both for companies and LLPs. But then we've got a list of various different formats that you might need that we don't currently have. So if you do require formats for those, so we've got charities, IFRS, farms, academies, medical practices, community interest companies, then do vote for whichever ones you have in your practice so we can get an indication of which you are most likely to need.
So we do have some maybe some news about charities. I don't know if you're prepared to say anything.
No, I think obviously we've been working on over the past couple of years doing the FRS 102 accounts, which we delivered last year, and we then went to work on the groups functionality, which we obviously delivered this week.
Just this week?
Yeah, so the next thing we'll go on to working on is charity accounts. So at the moment we're just sort of investigating and starting to work on that, so we haven't got any timelines as it stands, but it is something we're actively working on. So
it is coming. Okay. Yeah. So how's the poll gone, Dean?
Yes, looking good. Community interest companies has just pipped charities to the number one spot, only just. Lots of people have got community interest companies that act for. Next up is charities, then full FRS 102, which is good because we've got that one done already. Farms has crept in there ahead of groups, but we've got people wanting groups, and then smaller numbers for some of the other formats that we listed there.
And we'll be looking at some of those a little bit later on today.
Yeah, I think the KICS ones obviously is something that we obviously don't do at the moment, but with the sort of changeover to software-only filing, companies are looking at the way that people submit that data, so we'll be keeping an eye on that and making sure that we can incorporate that into our plans as well.
Brilliant. Thanks for taking part in that, everybody. Few questions that came up. Does the post back of tax journal work if we have closed the books and password protected them in QuickBooks or Xero? So this is that two-way sync.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you saw on my one, but it does give a warning when you're in our products to say if the period's been locked, it won't let you to do it. So in my check and finish here, it is saying that the period's not been locked. So if the periods are locked in the bookkeeping provider software, we won't allow, or they won't allow basically, us to export the figures back. So it shouldn't allow you to export if you've got, if it is locked, because that's obviously saying the period's locked down. They don't want any more changes to it.
We have had your favourite question come in, Andy. I don't know whether you want to answer that one.
Which one is it?
about whether we're going to make a recording available to participants.
I don't think we are.
No?
No, I think we won't bother this time. No. Yes, we always do. If you're registered, you will be receiving a copy of this, even if for some people don't show up and they only want the recording. But nonetheless.
And just on the same vein, actually, we've had a question asking about the poll results. I guess you can't. I thought if once you'd answered the poll, it then popped up the results for you to see. But if they've disappeared and you can't see those, then again in the recording afterwards, you'll be able to see all the poll results. Yeah.
I think it does. If you didn't take part in the poll, you won't be able to see them. But if you just do take part, I think it then should show you. So.
It's encouragement
it's encouragement to take part. Okay, so I know, and I think one of the most common issues that you've all got, you might not be writing it in the chat, is how can I win one of your hats, Andy? And I'm going to answer that question now by asking you a question. So quiz question number 2. Siobhan's put her hat back on just to model it. Look at that. Quiz question number 2. What does MLA stand for in TaxCalc's FRS102 MLA product? First one in gets a hat, pink or black, it's up to you. Use the chat.
Why isn't Dean? Tony asks why Dean's not wearing a hat.
Why isn't Dean not wearing a hat?
I think that's
Dean
important.
refused point blank to wear a hat.
It would mess up my hair.
It's not doing wonders for my hair, to be honest.
Right. Oh, this is a tricky one because James was kind of in there first, but hammered a bit too quickly on the keyboard, and there's far too many spelling errors in his initial response to give it to James. But
who got in there?
It depends. It depends how accurately you want to go with it, because Sarah has come up with the right word for each of MLA, but
people think this is fixed.
But technically, it's medium and large accounts. So look at Andy's.
I'm to be honest, I think Sarah's going to take it because it's MLA, medium large accounts.
Medium and large accounts.
It would be Mallow.
But we'll accept adjudicator's decision. We will
Sarah
accept
Solo,
medium large accounts.
Sarah Solo's entirely kitted out now in TaxCalc garb. Yeah.
She can have a black one to go with her black fleece. Right?
Go with the black one. There we go. It's all yours, Sarah. We'll get back to you on that one.
Oh, James is really upset. I think we should send James a hat as well because he got very close with that one.
That is fair. Okay, James, give us your details in the Q&A box if you will, please. Yes, all right, John. We will give them one each. Okay, fantastic. There was lots of questions there. Now, was that a question in the middle of that? There was a. So Mark has, in the middle of the furore around the quiz, Mark has been back to work and he's asked a question. On the check and finish error messages, is there a way to highlight, I keep jumping around, which posting can be allocated to a director? We had an import with 100 lines. It took ages to find the unallocated posting. It's a check and finish question.
Yeah, we don't actually have an option to filter the post and screen by postings that require directors, but I do see what he means because it would be handy because when you go into the actual batch, you just see obviously all the postings. You can obviously, it's not ideal, but you can tab through the fields, and obviously the director options are only available on the ones where you can actually post the directors. So if you jump through them quickly like that could help. But yeah, I do understand what he's saying there. This is why we have the Power Hour. We like to hear what you want to tell us, so we can we'll take that on board. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Okay, so we talked earlier about advanced formats. We have introduced a number of advanced formats. It would be nice to see a little run through of what they are and how they work a little bit. So Siobhan? Yeah, obviously we do the FRS102 formats. So we've got an option in the accounting standards where you can switch between FRS102 1A and FRS102. The default for us obviously is FRS102 1A. So yeah, you can change in here. So when you choose the FRS 102 standard, it will update all the options and notes and disclosures all to be relevant for FRS 102. So you'll have the strategic report on the cash flow and all the other applicable notes that are required for an FRS 102 company. But one of the most notable things, I suppose, between an FRS 102 1A company and an FRS 102 in terms of the reports is that they require a cash flow. So as part of our sort of cash flow edit notes section, what we'll do is we have options to allow you to sort of edit any of the sort of items which are shown in the cash flow, move them around or change how they're shown. But we also generate this sort of interactive points where you might want to look and revise or change the amounts that are showing. So say for example here we've got that we found there was an addition of tangible assets for £11,000. So we're just checking whether any of that was bought on a finance lease rather than paid for in cash, because obviously that would affect your actual your totals. So what I can do there is say, okay, actually, yeah, 10,000 of that was bought on by finance lease, and then it will update the cash flow there so that it will sort of edit it, and so it just shows coming as a non-cash movement. So yeah, any of the figures can be edited or changed or adjusted to move them around between different items in the cash flow statement, and obviously when you run the report then they will all be adjusted automatically for you. One of the other things that you do get as part of the MLA product is the option to enter tables inside of the actual edit notes section. So if you click into any of the edit notes of screens like this, you can insert a table like this. So a standard table just gives you a sort of standard formatted current last year type table, and you can also add in any of sort of a custom table with the amount of columns that you want and the amount of rows that you want, and just enter details. So I've gone into the review of business, so you maybe wanted to enter KPIs or some other sort of ad hoc type table, which you can do in there as well. So yeah, that was just a couple of points, I suppose, of things that were additional for the FRS102.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to go to the final quiz question, because it again, we like to shoehorn in questions so that they kind of fit into our range. We're about to look at group accounts with Dean. So the question I would like to ask, again, a hat up for grabs. In terms of group accounts, investment giant BlackRock is one of the world's largest and most diversified businesses. As of March 2024, how many businesses does it have a stake in? How many businesses comprise BlackRock? Answers in the chat, and then we've got some questions to go through. So keep them coming, keep them coming. I can't see a correct one so far.
We've had a couple close, but nothing on the money yet.
Not being funny, but 11,000. I mean, Claire.
That's a lot.
I think I'm going to call it. And it's no. Okay, no. I thought we had one a little bit closer there, but the actual answer. I'm going to give you the answer. The actual answer is 287 businesses. So imagine doing their group accounts. That's going to be fun, isn't it?
It's a lot, isn't it?
So I think the closest I saw, the first closest good answer came through from Sarah McNamara.
What did Sarah have?
Oh no, sorry, no, it wasn't Sarah. It was Pauline Hill.
Oh, we do have a closer one.
We've got a closer one than Pauline.
Well, Taylor Graham got 269, which I think is the closest.
That's the closest
that I saw.
All right, we'll take that.
Yeah.
So it's not like Mastermind. This we.
Yeah. And apologies to John, who I think came in 10 seconds too late with the correct answer. I don't know whether he heard you say it or he just managed to Google it quick enough.
I think John's like that.
Can't get that. Has he got previous form? Previous form.
Probably. Sorry, John. So I had to Taylor.
Yes. Taylor Graham. Well done.
Well done there. So there were a few questions that came in just before that, and some in the middle of it, actually. So I've got in the chart of accounts, can we have a default heading for office equipment? Computer equipment is limited and will not include desks and chairs. So you can, it's about really editing your chart of accounts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether he's saying can we have a default rather than, obviously he can edit our default to include those ones in there. So he can edit them at admin level, a bit like I did with the the edit notes option, so you can do that and set one himself. But yeah, we don't have a default one for that at the moment in the standard issued chart of accounts.
So we're going to say yes to that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, if that's what you meant, yeah.
Yep, providing you want that on all your clients.
Where a company has an extended period due to a change in year end, is it possible to change the headers on the profit and loss to show that the comparative is a year and the current year is an extended period?
Yeah, we don't have an option to do that automatically at the moment. It's a request that people have asked for, so it's something we'll look at.
Okay. You can do it manually, or?
No.
No? Okay. And then, are there any plans to have default depreciation rates to select from?
No. Not because I don't want to. It's not something that people necessarily have asked for before. Yeah, I can see why it'd be useful though, to be able to select them rather than having to manually type them in, but it's not something we've got in the plans at the moment.
Okay. Well, you're racking these
Yeah,
up.
I am. There's a lot of them.
We'll be
isn't
noting
there?
all of these down. And Tirth asks, can we add more than 8 classes of share capital and share premium in the chart of accounts? Like share capital class A, share capital class J?
Yeah, that's not possible either.
No?
Sorry. But yeah, there's obviously a limited amount of codes that we have, and we've given a reasonable sort of selection there, but yeah, we can't have any more than there's in there at the moment.
Fine.
I think one of the limitations we've got with adding additional accounts is that we automatically iXBRL tag everything, don't we? So if we created the ability to add another account, we've then got to kind of think about the ability to allow people to manually create tags for any additional rows that they create, and that adds in a bit of a complication. So although it might seem quite straightforward to just be able to add an extra account code in there, there's consequences on the iXBRL side that are difficult to get around.
Yeah. Okay, so Dean, you wanted to look at group formats. It's one of your favourites.
Yes.
This is quite new.
Yes, very new release. Went out to the first tranche of customers this morning. So some people are getting stuck into that. People who haven't had it yet, we'll be rolling out that update across this week. So if I dive back into the software, and in this scenario I've got a client here, holding company with 2 subsidiaries. So if we open up the holding company there. Now we've got this option added in here to identify this company as a parent that is going to be preparing group accounts. Now, if I tick that, just a little warning, that's going to use up one of my group accounts licenses. We can see that we now are in group mode for this client. So all the options down the left-hand side now have the group in front of them. And then we've got this button here that can switch between the options for the parent and switch back to the options when we're considering the group. So the first one I'm going to look at here is the group structure. So as I said, I've set this up with 2 subsidiaries, and this pick up from the relationships in Practice Manager. If you haven't set up those relationships, then you can manage your group structure from here, and that just saves you switching between accounts production and Practice Manager. You can do it in both and it will all stay in sync. It's running off a single database. We've got some information about each of those subsidiaries, which accounting standard they're reporting to, and whether we've got the ability to consolidate them. So if they weren't reporting to the same standard or to the year end, then we wouldn't allow that checkbox, and we'd give you a little status item to indicate why you wouldn't be able to consolidate them. But in this case, we're going to consolidate all 3 of those. If we go to the group posting screen, anything that you post within here is a group adjustment. Okay, so you're not going to affect the trial balance of the parent itself. This is where you put all your group postings, and you can do that in the same way that you would do for any other company. If you're the type of practice that likes to do all your group adjustments outside of accounts production rather than enter them in one by one as journals, then you can just create a trial balance of all those group adjustments and import them in one go, just as I demonstrated earlier for a regular trial balance. So I've done some group adjustments for this particular client. Again, just exactly the same way that I imported as a CSV before, and here's some of those adjustments that we're going to put through. and in they go. So if I go to the group trial balance now, we can see that on screen we've got the trial balance for each of those subsidiaries. We've got the trial balance for the parent, and then we've got a column with those group adjustments in, and then we've got the group total TB. So as you're scanning through, if you notice there are areas where you need to do further adjustments, then you can see that on screen. Another thing that we've done here, which I can see, is that we've got directors' salaries here. Some of it's been allocated to Brian Fox, and some of it has been unallocated, and I can see that that's come from the second subsidiary there. And the reason for this is that the director that's been allocated to in the subsidiary isn't also a director of the group. So we've identified that as unallocated so that you can go in and make that adjustment. Most likely you're going to move that out of directors' salaries as far as the group's concerned, and into just ordinary salaries and wages. And in the same way that Siobhan demonstrated earlier in terms of being able to drill down to the underlying data, as you can see, I clicked on this particular item and we can see all the different entries that make up the group trial balance here. We're in the group nominal ledger, but even though all these entries are from a different company, either the parent or one of the two subsidiaries, if we click here, this will bring up right back to the original posting batch of the particular company concerned. So you'll notice here I'm still in the holding company, I'm still in the parent. I haven't had to go off to the subsidiary, go to the posting batch, hunt down this particular entry. It's just taken us straight there from the nominal ledger. So it's a quick way to drill down to the underlying data. Probably wouldn't make too many adjustments here. It's more a case of just being able to see what's in there. But if you did want to make an adjustment here, that would update the posting within that subsidiary without having to navigate to it directly. So that's the kind of trial balance and nominal ledger side of things. And then I think the same as Siobhan demonstrated earlier, we've also got the edit mode within the group financial statements. Again, so you can drill right back down to all the information that you need to see. So if I go to the consolidated P&L here, if I switch to edit mode, then I can go into any of these highlighted items. This will give the full breakdown of how that figure was added up. So here's all the different accounts that make up the cost of sales. Again, I can drill down from here just within this same screen back to the nominal ledger, and again I can go straight down from here to that original posting batch. So again, it's wherever you happen to be in the product, you can drill down right to the underlying posting. If you do need to make any adjustments, it will be made right in front of you on the fly, and then the accounts will be updated there and then. So all the same kind of functionality within an ordinary company, you get that in groups as well. And then the final thing I wanted to show that we didn't show earlier was the check and finish. I assume every existing TaxCalc customer on the call is well aware of our check and finish. It's one of our really good ways of reviewing what you're doing, whether it's in the accounts, tax, or any of our other products. And it just gives you different levels of indicator for things that you need to take a closer look at within the account. So as you can see, we've got some red, amber, and what would we call that, slightly turquoisey options. The red obviously being the most important, the amber ones you still need to address them, and these kind of bluey, greeny, turquoisey ones, we will find out the official name for that colour from our creative team, I'm sure. They're more just for information purposes that you don't necessarily have to do something for. We're just raising it for your attention. But you can go through, and of course any of these hyperlinks take you directly to where that particular error occurs so that you can make the appropriate adjustment, whether that's in the edit note screen or somewhere else within the product, and then come back out. And the final point just to make on this screen for groups is that whether you're in the group section or within the parent company, you will get an indication of whether everything is complete for both. So whereas you'll get a single tick if I cleared off all of these, you'll need a double tick in this case, one to indicate that everything is hunky-dory for the group, and another tick to indicate that everything's hunky-dory in the parent. But that is our new
New
group
groups.
accounts functionality, yeah.
Thank you so much, Dean. What I've got to say I love about the Power Hour is the community that we've built up. And I've been watching the chat and seeing you guys helping each other out. And that's wonderful. That's what it's all about, that everyone, it's not just us, you can help each other out. So thank you for everyone who's answered other people's questions and we've not even been involved. This is how we'd like to roll. Paul, sounds like you're having some issues rolling forward some settings. It might be best off, if you can't resolve that, to get in touch with our support team. So before we kind of come to the closing bit, there was some comments. So Anne and White, one of our close friends, I don't think was able to make it on today, emailed in with some questions. Dean, do you want to tackle some of those?
Yes, the first question she raised was actually, I think, something that was highlighted by the professional bodies, that they felt accountants were becoming perhaps a little bit too reliant on the software they're using, and not all software is as comprehensive as ours, and not necessarily making the right disclosures on their clients' accounts because they're just trusting whatever the software spat out at them. And she was asking what we'd recommend to our customers to avoid that happening. Firstly, I think that's probably less of an issue for our customers because of how extensively we make sure that our disclosures meet the requirements, but it is reliance on obviously the users of the software to enter the right information to generate those correct disclosures. We don't in our product have any form of kind of disclosure checklist. I'd actually be interested if you could hit a yes or a no in the chat as to whether you use disclosure checklists within your practice. I know the practice I trained at, we had disclosure checklists that we'd have to go through with every set of accounts to make sure that we had put the right things in. But in my own practice, I relied on the software. I think when most of your client base is roughly the same kind of small companies, you know what disclosures you do and don't need. So I didn't feel the need to go through a manual ticking off checklist on the formal disclosure checklist. But that would, I guess, be the obvious solution to that issue. But I would be interested, in the chat, how many people do use disclosure checklists or not.
And then the other question that she brought up, I thought was quite interesting, was she says, due to the proposed threshold changes and the recategorisation of companies, i.e. small companies reclassified as micro entities, she said she'd be interested to know your thoughts on if there's any issues they should consider before changing the reporting structure from a company from FRS 102 to FRS 102 1A or from 102... from FRS to 1A,
Yeah, I think I showed earlier on, obviously, when you could with a screen where you can change the accounting standards. So it's quite easy to change them. And if you are changing between FRS 102 1A to like FRS 102, where there are more disclosures, it will retain any that you have already filled in for the FRS 102 1A. So it's not like when you're changing standards, it's all of a sudden...
You're starting again.
Yeah. So it will keep anything that is consistent between the two standards. Obviously, if you're going from something like FRS 102 back down to lower disclosures, because the limit changes, I think, mean that quite a few companies will be recategorised as micro entities. So you won't retain all of the extra disclosures that you had before, but you obviously will get all the applicable disclosures that were there when it was FRS 102 1A. So changing is very easy, and you obviously retain anything that's applicable for the new standard you're selecting.
It's probably worth pointing out, actually, because sometimes some things are kind of so easy in our software that we forget that they're not quite so easy in other systems, and we've got non-TaxCalc accounts production users on the call. I know certainly software I used previously, once you'd set up that particular year end for a client, you'd set that accounting standard in stone, which was really awkward if a junior member of the team has prepared all the accounts, you get to review stage and you realise they've used the wrong accounting standard. They basically had to delete that year and start again, whereas in our system, you can change the standard and you don't lose the information that you've already put in. So that's quite nice when those things happen.
Okay, well, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And thank you, Anne. as always. Okay, right. Well, look, we've come to the end now. There was one final poll, I think, really just to see if anyone's interested in the group accounts. Do you want to load that up?
Yes, I'm just going to make that poll live on your screen. So really it's just a follow-up. If you'd like one of our account managers to speak to you about group accounts, you want to learn a little bit more about that, how it's priced, how you might want to use it in your practice, then do just hit a yes to that poll and we shall get an account manager to give you a call.
Thank you very much. So, okay, well, look, we've kind of run out of time. So thank you very, very much for watching. Thank you very much, Dean and Siobhan, for joining us. We will be back next week for another don't miss edition of TaxCalc TV, where we will be joined by Paul Rigney and Nick Davis for the inside track on how HMRC are behaving when it comes to inquiries. We're going to look at what they're focusing on and what to do if you get a nudge letter, for example. We will be at Accountex 15th, 16th of May. Fantastic session we've got at 3 p.m. On the first day, where we'll be joined by Rebecca Bennyworth and Sharon Cook, the brains trust of tax, and we're going to be looking at the tricky times that your small business clients are going to be facing with the confluence of cash accounting, basis period reform, MTD, and a whole lot more, potentially a new government over the next few months. So if you are there and you want a cap today, I would expect you to be wearing one. Come, you may be able to get a cap as well. Well done to our winners, by the way. And finally, we're going to be, I will be at the Taxation Awards on the 16th of May, which is just after Accountex. So if you are happening to be there, then please do come along. It'll be great to see you. Until then, thank you very much and goodbye.